So today we are helping my dad out. He's already kind of looked into it. He was getting a clicking, popping sound from the front end on his truck here. It's a like '08 F-150 four-wheel drive. So let's go around to the other side of the truck here, and we've already got it tore down on this side, found out what it is, and let me show you what we've got. So this is the spindle that the wheel bearing bolts into, and on the back side, what they call it is a locking hub. It rusted out. There's vacuum that goes to this, and there's a spring inside there. And what happened is the lock collar that locks this piece of the axle to this piece of the hub that turns the hub started sliding into the hub and just catching. So every time it got pressure on it, it would pop next to the next tooth. So that was the popping and clicking sound you heard. And it did not function properly. So now we have a set of new ones. They come in a set of two, and we will bolt this to the back of this hub or this spindle, get it all cleaned in there, bolt that up, put this axle together, and then I'll show you tear down on the other side how we get that done. All right, let's get to it. Next part is underneath. All right, you see the axle, or this is the flange from the differential right here. This is the axle shaft that goes out to the end of the wheel. Goes up here like this. And you turn it so it's lined up. And then there's 6 bolts that go in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start all 6 with Loctite on them, because you really don't want them to come back out without, you know, a tool on it making it come back out. What you can do is with someone's help, they can get in the driver's seat and hit the brakes. What happens if you don't have someone hold the brakes is, as you go to tighten it down, what will happen is you're not tight yet and the axle starts turning. Just like that. So you can go around and get them close. So now they're all kind of snug. I'm going to have somebody hold the brakes. Here's a little bit different angle. Ready? You holding? Holding the brakes?
Okay, ready to go.
Oh God. Maybe not the best angle. Hold them harder. All right, release. Apply.
Okay.
All right, for this side, all you got to do is put the wheel back on and you're good to go. All right, so for disassembly, that's what we'll do on this side. If you know that that's your issue, I would start with these 6 bolts. All right, now that I got the axle loose from the differential, the reason I did that first was so somebody could hold the brake. The next step for me is going to be pulling these 2 bolts, this one and the lower one, for this whole bracket, so I can move this out just a little bit to clear the hub, and I can take this and the rotor off at the same time and leave the rotor in the caliper and just set it on a milk crate off to the side. Then I can pop this cap off. I'll take that nut off and then I'll start working on this upper ball joint. I got to clean the threads up, put some stuff in there so it will come loose. I'll run this nut off, except for a couple threads. I'll put a jack underneath it, and then I'll hammer on this to pop it loose from the ball joint stud. Now, I want to make sure that this nut can come all the way off easily enough, so when I pop it loose from the ball joint, I know I can get that nut off. So that way when I go back together with it, I know I can get that nut on as well. And that will allow the steering knuckle to tilt out, and with the hub off and the axle loose, what I'll be able to do is compress that axle enough to tip it out of the way, and then I can take the 3 bolts off the back of the locking hub and replace it. So here we go. All right, this is the original one. You can kind of see it's out where it would possibly engage with this, but this is a vacuum gun. I've got it hooked up to the vacuum on the back side of that locking hub. Now when I pump the vacuum up, you can see that locking collar come in, so it would disengage with that, and as the vacuum is released, you can see it come out. To me, that doesn't look like that's disengaging or engaging all the way out into that hub. So I would guess that it wouldn't take much for the 4-wheel drive not to work. So with this new hub design, like I showed you before, the collar is wider and there is no vacuum to it, so it's always engaged. So the only thing that has to work is the transfer case that would allow power to be sent to the differential, and from there the differential is always engaged with your wheels. So now we're going to work on this ball joint. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start, like I said earlier, I'm going to start taking this nut off, and I'll take it off a little bit, put it back on, and I'll just kind of work it back and forth so it turns all the way off easily. So now that that's loose, we're going to put a jack underneath the lower A-arm and just put a little bit of pressure on that A-arm. That way all this doesn't try to unfold. That's good. So now we can lean that out just like that, and we'll switch your angle. Now you're looking down at the axle. So this is the axle, there's the steering knuckle, upper ball joint that I just took out. We lean it as far this way as we can. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull this axle out of the back. Now it's got a stud on it right there that nut went on, and it's fairly long, so you kind of have to fight it, but it's possible. And with that popped out, we don't have to take it clear out. We just had to get it out of the way. We've got 3 bolts, one where my finger is now, and 2 down right here and here. And that holds that locking hub, is what they call it, in place. Three bolts, set them to the side. And then I'm going to take a hammer and a punch and pop that locking hub out of the spindle. So I'll lean that up. I'll just run the punch through the wheel bearing side. And it pops right out. There's a seal right there that kind of hold a rubber seal that kind of holds it in that hub, and that's why I hit it with a hammer. You can see in this one even that it's starting to rust out at the top, and it was keeping that collar from coming out like it's supposed to when it's supposed to be engaged. So I would be willing to bet if he had to have 4-wheel drive, it wasn't going to work for him. Here's our new one. We got to clean this surface up in here and slap this in. And then you can slide. Ooh, that would have been not fun to find out later. So there's a little spring in that seal to keep it tight on the axle. It just popped out of place. Just roll it back in place like that and be more careful. All right, then once you kind of get that shoved in place, and you can work that axle later, but what you can do is you can pinch that lower A-arm down and then push back on the steering knuckle, and that'll jam that in, and you can start a couple threads on that nut. Now why you got to push that in and jam it like that is because these bushings don't want to rotate down. So this A-arm is trying to pick this up. there's not quite enough stud there to grab with a wrench. So you can grab real easy with a pair of pliers and kind of suck that together. See in here, you can see that snap ring in that groove. That axle goes all the way to that snap ring. And then when you put your hub on, the splines inside the hub will go all the way to that snap ring. You can put your 4 bolts in the back to draw your hub in, and then the nut here keeps the axle in the wheel bearing, the hub assembly. So that keeps that back section, the axle shaft, engaged in those splines. Oh, that's where the grease will come out. Okay. Yep. Not getting any more in there. So now we got the whole hub in together. The locking hub hooked up and greased up. Ball joint. This shouldn't affect any steering. The vacuum line is hooked up to the deadhead ports on that, and the ABS wire for the hub is all tidied up. Now we got to go back underneath and put those 6 bolts back in with the Loctite. All right, so that's how you do those locking hubs on these Ford pickups. Dad's in the back putting the wheels on. He's the one that took them apart, so he can put them back on. I'm sure he could have handled this himself, but a little bit of education can make you feel a lot more comfortable and take a lot less time. So glad to help him out. Thanks for watching. Please give me a like, subscribe, and see you in the next one. Bye.